I'm really excited today because I have a great guest with us who's actually a former coworker of mine. His name is Jim Gazzale of Sense Fitness. He is doing great things in the health and fitness space and is running a business with his wife and navigating the challenges of fatherhood. So really excited to have him with me here today. Jim, how you doing, man?
Good. Thanks for having me, Joe. This is
There you go. I hear you now. It's a beautiful thing. We just need to bring up your volume so we can hear you a little bit louder. So I want to start with your story, man.
sure.
I've seen the pictures, and I obviously follow you and your business and your family along on the journey there. So tell me, I guess, kind of how you got into this fitness space and what your entry level, I'll call it, was, because we know each other from news, and let's just be honest, especially from a production standpoint, and it's not exactly like health and fitness are a priority when you're sitting at a desk producing a newscast.
No, certainly not. When you and I worked together back in 2010, 2011 in the Bronx, there was Jimbo's breakfast stand like right next door that everybody would kind of walk through the parking lot to.
Just to be clear, that was not your breakfast stand. Just happened to be
No,
named
no,
Jimbo's.
wasn't. I thought that'd be pretty convenient if it was. I mean, I was there often enough. So, yeah, I guess from there, it probably still was a good 4 or 5 years before I started to take health, my health, fairly seriously. So, 2012, 13, started working out. We had like a Groupon to go to somewhat of a CrossFit style gym and up here in the Albany area, and went through that for the first couple of months and went a few times a week, and it was fun. But really started to develop some really strong friendships there. Probably a good 6, 7 months in, and from there, it wasn't so much the workouts themselves, because it probably did take me a good 18 months or so of exercise before I figured out that you needed to have the nutrition piece in check as well.
That's
But it
always
was
the tough part.
yeah, yeah. But it was a lot of the relationships and the community aspect and the friendships that my wife and I built through the gym that kept us going and kept us engaged there. We've got lifelong friends now that we made at that gym. The gym has since gone out of business because of COVID, but yeah, we've seen those friends get married, have kids, all sorts of different stuff all through the gym. So we're grateful for the time that we spent there and kind of the future that it's provided us from, friends standpoint and from a overall health and wellness standpoint as well.
Now, I know the story. I've read it a couple times, but I want you to share with our audience here. What was it like when you first went in that gym from your personal point of view and experience? Because CrossFit can be a little bit intimidating, and I know you've shared openly how that felt walking into that gym the first day.
Yeah, I've never been, I always used to look at people that were in shape and, took their health seriously as, it was just an insecurity on my part. Like, I was intimidated by them because I had no idea what I was doing. I'd walk through a gym anywhere and just like go to the dumbbell rack because that's all I knew, like how to do, or what, bicep curls. That was it.
Right.
But
Huge
having,
arms and a big gut.
yeah, yeah, right. But kind of, my wife was always into fitness. One of our first dates was to like a spin class at the Bally's on Queens Boulevard out in Kew Gardens. And that like nearly killed me. And then, as our relationship progressed, she had a personal trainer. I went to one of those classes and ended up throwing up in the bathroom and, running out the door and waiting for her in the car. So when she came up with the idea to go to this CrossFit style gym, and I was a little intimidated. It seemed okay. you know, but again, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. So the first class, the coach, trainer is like, grab your kettlebells and let's do some kettlebell swings. I had no idea what a kettlebell was. And the class, at that time was probably 40 plus people. So not all of the enough equipment to go around, let's say. So the last thing I was left with was this tiny, 7-pound bright pink kettlebell that I was like, all right, let me look around and see what everybody else is doing and just try to do it the same way. And I ended up, doing it horribly wrong to the point where the trainer came sprinting over and grabbed it out of my hands to make sure I didn't, injure myself. So that was a kind of a, feet to the fire, if you will, sort of initiation into some strength training in some sort of dedicated, purposeful way. And, luckily the community, like I've mentioned, was great. And from there, it just continued to progress and grow and get more involved in it, and really started to develop the skills, and kind of everything worked out from that initial foray into kettlebells.
That's awesome. So how long before you said, okay, I got this now, I want to make fitness my life, and decided that you wanted to go and pursue it as a business and a career?
So that was early 2015, and we launched our business in the fall of 17. So probably, a little over 2 years from that point, to feeling, I guess I never really feel totally confident and comfortable in my knowledge and in the fitness space. Everything's kind of evolving all the time, it seems like. So still a little bit of imposter syndrome, but having the confidence and courage enough to kind of start putting myself out there. Yeah, about 2.5 years, I would say.
I love that you said that, because that's one of the things that we talk about so often with the Dad Habit is imposter syndrome, right? And that you always go through these things where even if you've been in the field for a while, because things are changing, there's always, you think, somebody out there who knows more than I do, or am I really credible? Do I know as much as I think I know? And I think that one of the things that we encourage that helps people with that a lot is the fact that, as you said, realizing that a space is always evolving, that we need to become lifelong learners. And if you accept the fact that you're never going to know everything, but you're always willing to learn something new and then figure out how you can apply it, that helps, I think, a little bit get over the imposter syndrome. When I look at you, I mean, you have taken that to another level, because you went from this guy who didn't know how to swing a kettlebell to becoming an Ironman. So can you talk about what becoming a triathlete and specifically participating in an Ironman and completing one meant for you on your own fitness journey and for your business as well?
Yeah, it's actually an interesting story of how, kind of like the kettlebells, really. We were up in Lake Placid, my wife, Karen, my sister, brother-in-law, my brother-in-law's dad and his brother, doing a weekend backpacking trip up in the high peaks in the Adirondacks. And, we climbed the tallest mountain in New York State, came back down, after sleeping in the woods for, 3 days. And we spent a night or two in Lake Placid at a hotel to get clean, relax a little bit. And it was a few weeks before Ironman Lake Placid, which is one of the more popular ones in the US on an annual basis. We're walking around, we see people swimming, biking, running all over the place. And we're like, wow, is there like some event going on? We were totally clueless. And I just happened to ask one woman walking along the beach there, and I said, what the heck is everybody doing this weekend? She goes, oh, we're all training for Ironman. And at the time, I had never heard of Ironman. I didn't know what it was.
It
What
was
it
a
was.
Robert Downey Jr. movie where a billionaire puts on a suit.
Yeah, exactly. So she's like, yeah, it's a triathlon. I'd never really heard of triathlon at that point. 2.4 mile swim, 112-mile bike ride, 26.2 full marathon run, And I was like, all in a day? And she's like, yeah, one right after another. And I was like, wow, okay. And not to sound like arrogant or boastful in any way, but at that point, I felt like I was in tip top peak physical shape. So my initial thought was, yeah, I could do that. And as I'm seeing all of these people like training all weekend, doing the different events, and there's always so much energy in Lake Placid as it is. It's just a fun place to be, in terms of like people being outdoors and being active. So I kind of got like sucked up into the atmosphere a little bit, and then driving home, kind of stopped thinking about it. And it just so happened that Monday I was back in the gym, and one of my gym buddies just happened to randomly say, "Hey, I think we should do Ironman."
Hmm.
And I was like, "Wow, I was just talking to this woman about it. It's like coincidence that you bring it up. Let's do it."
So the
So
stars are aligning for you right there.
yeah, it was like, the universe kind of aligned in some crazy way over the course of 48 hours. And a week later, we were back up in Lake Placid volunteering. This was 2016. So we volunteered at the 2016 race. Again, big event, so all the hotels and whatever else are full. So we ended up sleeping in the woods in a tent again, and then going back into town that morning and swiping the credit card, and 365 days to go until we were at the start line. So yeah, we trained for a good year and completed the race. And I think from there it was just two things. I mean, the sport is so rewarding. I felt just more of a sense of accomplishment in throughout the entire training, that style of training, more so than I felt in the gym.
Hmm.
Nearly, squatting 400 pounds, nearly deadlifting 100 pounds, whatever my bench press was, all fine accomplishments. Um, but, and I still enjoy doing that stuff and I love it. But the feeling of accomplishment I got through triathlon training just far surpassed that. So I knew it was something that I wanted to continue to do for a long time. And kind of comically, triathlon can be a fairly expensive sport, and I
Yeah.
sunk a lot of money into it. And I was like, it's kind of silly to spend thousands of dollars to just do this once. So, and once you have the equipment, you don't really need to upgrade it all that often. So I figured might as well get my money's worth and stick with it. So, what's that? 4 years later, here we are.
So help me understand something. How did you go from a guy who was going to hurt himself with a 7-pound kettlebell in that CrossFit gym, who didn't know anything about working out, to get to a point mentally where you are now bitten by this bug and getting these highs from exercise and an Ironman now?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is that mental aspect. For me, like I mentioned at the beginning, the community that we found in the gym helps you show up every day, almost forces you to show up every day. So the same sort of applied with triathlon training. It was me. We started out with a group of 3 or 4, and a couple of people dropped off towards the middle of the training cycle. But having that community where, every weekend it's a 3, 4, 5 hour bike ride that you're doing together, forces you to show up and build that physical and mental toughness and fitness. It helped that most of the group were military, so they have a unique set of mental and physical skills that luckily I was able to kind of glean some insights. Never achieve that level of mental and physical fortitude, but having that community to work with and train with was really important. And in addition to that, kind of like on the flip side, yes, you have this community, that built-in accountability, but at the same time, we're not training together every single day. And triathlon and endurance sports in general can be a fairly lonely sport. So building that mental toughness to sit in the garage on my bike for 4 hours by myself certainly helps. So you kind of have to learn to enjoy your own company, and then when the time and opportunities present themselves, take advantage of that group accountability as well.
I want to dive into that for a second, something you just said there, because I think it's so important. Enjoying your own company, right? I think that there's a lot of dads, a lot of people right now, especially coming out of the pandemic, that might struggle to be alone and to just rest in that stillness, or to kind of find that creativity. It's almost a meditative mindset that you get from being on the bike, especially when you're on a trainer, not going anywhere, hearing that whir of the trainer go over and over again in the background. So how difficult was that for you? And was there anything in particular that helped? Because I imagine that's a long way, sitting on that bike in your garage for 4 hours, from being somebody who had never stepped in a gym at one point.
Yeah, I think to do that, it helps to kind of play games with yourself a little bit. Like, okay, let me get through this hour, and then I know I've only got, 3/4 of the way to go. Then you bridge that gap to the next hour, I'm halfway, so on and so forth. That helps. Playing with your nutrition, because you can't just hop on there and go for 4 hours without eating or drinking anything. You won't last very long doing that. So, kind of looking forward to, all right, 30 more minutes and I can have this snack. 45 more minutes after that, I can have this snack. Yeah. Trying to time how much you're drinking out of your Gatorade bottle or whatever. Those sorts of things help from a mental standpoint. But to your point that you brought up initially, especially being a dad now, we feel like we've got to be with our kids, with our spouse 100% of the time, always have to be present, and we should be. But I've found that the triathlon training is, this might sound, the word escape might sound negative, but it's my escape to kind of recharge, so to speak.
Right.
And so I can come out of a workout and be that dad, that husband, that person that is present with my family, that is feeling energized, rather than kind of being distracted, not having any time for myself to kind of work on myself and achieve the things that I want to achieve. So enjoying my alone time and kind of prioritizing that helps me be a better athlete, better husband, better father, all of these things that I'm able to do because I prioritize that alone time.
Yeah, and the two things that we say all the time, and you've heard them before, I feel like they're getting a little cliche at this point, is the fact that, when you're on an airplane, there's a reason they tell you to put your mask on first before you go and put a mask on the person next to you. Or the other one is that you can't pour from an empty cup. So for you just said recharging your battery. If you're filling up, that's you filling up your cup again, so that you can have something there to pour for your wife and your kids and, everybody else around you. I think so many times there is this perception that self-care is selfish, but every time that we snap because we're hungry or we're exhausted or because we're not taking care of ourselves, and so we have those insecurities, is just an example of how important it is to take care of yourself so that you can be your best self for the people around you. And if you do that with that in mind, I think it helps people get over that hump a little bit to get started. And, I love when you said the first hour. You talk about the first hour because I lie to myself all the time. When I start my workouts, I say, I'm going to work out for 5 minutes. And by the time that 5 minutes is up, I'm like, all right, I'm in it, right? But starting sometimes is just the hardest part. So I will lie to myself on those days that I really don't want to work out and say, I'm just going to get moving for 5 minutes. And then, somewhere between 20 minutes and 40 minutes later, I'm like, that was fantastic, and it all started because of those 5 minutes. I want to talk for a second about Sense Fitness and how you guys kind of started that together because, I'm talking to an Ironman here, and I think that can be intimidating for a lot of people who might be listening out there. But I love the way that you have simplified some of these programs that you have and made them so relatable to people out there. The wine and weight loss program, I keep telling my wife, she looks at it and I show her everything that you guys post there. I want her to take part in it because I know she would enjoy it. But how do you go about letting people know that they can take control of their life, that they can take control of their weight without feeling like they're in a prison when it comes to their nutrition or a slave to whatever workout routine they might have?
Yeah, it's one of the biggest misconceptions in the health and fitness space, right? Diet culture leads us to believe that we need to eliminate all of these things so we can lose weight. And a lot of what the more mainstream diets or programs focus on is just a short period of time. And sure, you can lose a ton of weight in 30 days, 60 days by eliminating all of these things. And if that's what you want to do, by all means, go ahead. What we really try to educate and encourage people through is once you like the program or the process, your health and fitness doesn't stop after that 60-day program. This is a lifelong thing that you need to pay attention to, you need to focus on, and you need to continue to work at it, whether you're trying to constantly lose weight, because you're going to get to a certain point where you're going to want to and need to maintain your current weight when you've achieved your goals. So what happens then? Do you bring back the cake and the cookies and the wine that you've eliminated for so long to achieve this goal weight? And if you do that, chances are that weight's going to come back on because you kind of subscribe to these diet rules, so to speak, that
Right.
make you feel nice and warm and safe. And, they put you in this box. But life allows us to be creative and get outside the box. So, what happens after that program where you have graduation parties, you have birthday parties, the holidays where the wine is there, the beer is there, the sweets and the chocolate and this and that? If you don't have a plan in place on how to incorporate those things in an effective way that won't quote unquote derail your progress, and you can do it in a way that doesn't make you feel guilty, that's real life. That's going to take you from your 30s to your 40s to your 50s to your 60s and so on. So that's really what our goal and mission is through our program. Simplify it and also put it within the context of your entire life. We're not just a eat this, don't eat that, quick fix, lose weight fast, move on with your life and gain it all back, 6 months later. We really want to bring people along through their entire lives. Not that we need them in the program for their entire life, but we want to build the skills. We want you to build the skills that allow you to remain successful and keep your health and fitness top of mind so you can continue to work at it. Because, let's face it, you do need to work at it for forever, because the moment you take your foot off the gas or you lose focus on it for any extended period of time, that's where the weight gain comes in, that's where your fitness drops, and that's where all of the unhealthy habits start to creep back in.
Right. And I look at it as a program like yours, something like we're trying to do with the Dad Hab, it's not about that quick fix. It's more about setting up the principles for life. So like it's getting the tools so that you have what you need to deal with your life on a daily basis. And I love the fact that you talked about the birthday parties or the graduations, because so many people will say, okay, I'll make this my exception, right? I'll eat the cake at the graduation, or I'll have this at the birthday party. But for me, I mean, I come from a large Italian family, and I think you share some of that similarly. There's always a birthday party. There's always a wedding. There's always a baptism, whatever it might be. So if you just say, okay, I mean, and then you go to work and you've got cake and cookies because somebody brought them for whatever event is going on. If you're a social person and you're out there, then chances are you're dealing with a lot of these, especially now that you've got kids. As dads, how many kids' birthday parties do we go to? Oh, I got to have a piece of cake at the kids' birthday party. That can snowball so fast on you if you're not in control. And I think the other thing is just reframing our mindset about thinking about who we are and what these events mean to us. Because so many times for me, and I know this is true for you too, that these events were centered around food, right? The meal and that connection with our family members and the people that are there was part of that. And that's why we have that emotional connection with that food. And, you know, it's funny. You talked about at one time, I saw you do a post where I think you were doing like squats at an airport or something like that. And I think that you said just the idea, and I'm paraphrasing here, this isn't going to be a quote or anything like that, but the idea of feeling self-conscious about your fitness and your health. And I think that whether you're taking the time out to go ride your bike or you're choosing to eat a healthier meal when you are at these parties, like you shouldn't feel self-conscious about that. And I know that's so hard. I struggle with that all the time. One of the things that I have gotten into in recent years is meditation, but I still feel a little self-conscious when I say, okay, I need to stop, either pull over my car and meditate, or, you know, at my office, just sit down in a chair for 5 minutes and meditate. But knowing what's on the other side of that and trying to remember that has been so important to me. In the sense that I know how I'm going to feel after those 5 minutes, and I am a better person. I am better at my job. I am better at whatever task I need to take on next when I can take those 5 minutes and work more efficiently. So I'm curious for you there, then how do you manage to get over that hump? Because I know we all have those moments, right? So what works for you in your life to, I guess, battle those insecurities when they pop up?
I look back to where I was when I first started. You know, I said earlier that a lot of my, you know, dislike for the gym was just my own insecurity. And going to the gym, eating healthy, getting in shape, and just seeing how that has kind of opened up my life to all of these new and exciting opportunities is really all the self-confidence I need to just kind of, you know, not worry so much about what, you know, somebody rolling their eyes at me while I'm, you know, doing push-ups in an airport. You know, I think it's like the chicken or the egg. You know, do you kind of keep pushing through it to get to the other side to a point where you have the confidence, or do you kind of try and build it behind closed doors and hope that you can get to a certain point where you don't feel these insecurities? And to me, it's like we have to push beyond our self-limiting beliefs and know that what we're doing for ourselves is the right thing, and we need to feel confident in our choices, whether that's through nutrition, fitness, raising kids, how we, you know, conversations with our significant others, like all of those things. If we're confident in ourselves, then all of those things seem to fall the way they should.
Right. Yeah. And, you know, you talked about the community before and how important that was for you. But you have such a strong support system at home. You mentioned that your wife was the one who was into health and fitness first, and then you've started a business together. So I'm very curious, what was that like? How is that on a daily basis, knowing that, you know, it's not just your wife there, it's also your business partner when you're trying to, I guess, work through some of the daily challenges? And do you compartmentalize them, or do they just overlap for you when it comes to those roles?
Yeah, I think we've got a good job description for both of us, and
Now, with the business or at home?
both,
Okay.
both. It takes a lot of communication for sure.
Yeah.
And over the years, as we've both, we Karen and I have been together for 10 years now, married for 6. So much like you build the skills to exercise, get fit, eat healthy, we've built the skills to communicate with each other more effectively. So having that open dialogue, whether it's with the business or with the kids or with our own goals, is essential. So when we first started the business, I was 100% all in. This is our golden ticket. We're gonna we'll be retired in 10 years. This is the life we want to live. And she's on the other side, just dipping her toe in the water. So finding that sort of middle ground, her kind of, pulling me by the shirt collar and saying, okay, like, let's calm down a little bit. This isn't everything that you think it might be right off the bat. We got to work at it. And me saying, like, come on, let's go. Let's start putting our best foot forward together and start building this thing. So kind of meeting in the middle there. I handle a lot of the day-to-day stuff, and we coordinate some of the big picture, more long-term things, like when we open up our program for enrollments and different things. We work really closely together on that. But in terms of the day-to-day, business functions, a lot of that, falls on my plate. And then in terms of running the household, I think our household looks a lot different than mine did growing up, where traditional gender roles. My mom cooked, she cleaned, she prepared our lunches, she did the laundry. Now it's just a team effort for Karen and I, that I've got a basket of laundry I need to go fold here in the next little bit. I prepared
I don't
dinner.
want to get you in trouble later, because if the laundry's not folded, you better get that done after we're done here.
Yeah, so it's a lot of it is communication. We have to, and as the kids get older and start growing up, we've got some interesting family dynamics going on, that require us to have challenging conversations. So we, funny enough, a few nights ago, we scheduled time after the kids were asleep. We're like, hey, we need to talk about some difficult stuff, and we need to have, take the emotion out of it. So let's get the kids to sleep, come back downstairs, and we have an hour to get on the same page about a few topics. And I think having the maturity and the type of relationship that we do, kind of not just husband and wife raising kids, but being business partners and working on that, has allowed us to grow a lot closer over the last couple of years, to put us in a position where we can have those challenging conversations about life, where we want to go, what our goals are, and also where we need to have difficult conversations about the direction the business is heading. So all of those things kind of, mold themselves into one sort of cohesive unit, working hand in hand, knowing what our role is in each sort of area, and, just basically having a teammate through all of that.
All right, there's 3 things I want to touch on there. We'll get to more on the communication in a second. But you mentioned the gender roles, right, that exist in your house. And I'm curious, for you, was that difficult at all? Because I know in my household it's something too. And there are still stereotypical roles that we fill. Like, my wife hates taking out the garbage, and that's the man's job in her mind, type of thing. And I know a lot of guys struggle with that, right? The role of father is changing drastically, especially as more women become breadwinners in the household. That can be difficult for a lot of guys to deal with. So was there an adjustment period for you?
Not necessarily. And I think it helped that after college, I was out of the house living by myself. I only moved back into my parents' house for about 18 months when our paths crossed, Joe, at News 12.
Yep.
But having a couple of years living by myself in random parts of the country with limited to no in-person friendships in those areas kind of allowed me to figure out how to be self-sufficient.
Well, you went to Russia at one point, right? The two of you went to Russia together, talking about not having a network or a community.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think having that sort of solo experience allowed me to, learn how to do those things for myself. So it wasn't an instance where Karen's like, hey, figure out how to do the laundry or figure out how to cook or prepare your meals or whatever. I had, basic skills and was already used to doing a lot of those things on my own. So there really wasn't much of an adjustment. And, just living with, Karen and I started dating, and then like 4 or 5 months later, we're living together in a foreign country. So,
standard love story, that's how it goes for most people.
Very, very basic, quite common. So, we got to know each other pretty quickly. We had no choice. So I picked up on, the things that she likes, she doesn't like, and pitching in around the apartment, around the house, making sure things are clean and neat was a sticking point for her. So it wasn't so much of an adjustment, but just a perception on my part, like, hey, I should kind of pick up the slack and do some of these things to just make life a little bit easier. But it wasn't like any sort of like lifestyle overhaul that I needed to go through to get to this point.
Yeah. So you were used to those things going in. You mentioned the communication aspect, and I love hearing that you guys are scheduling time for that communication, because I think that can go so overlooked. And I think it's one of the books we've read called You Win in the Locker Room First talks about where there is a lack of communication, contempt will breed, right? And we go back to our own insecurities that go in our head. So if we're not talking it out, sometimes our imaginations, whether or not we use them enough as adults, can still be pretty powerful things. And you can create some scenarios in your head that often feel the worst. And if you're not talking about it, the truth is often so much so much better than we might perceive it in our minds, or things may seem so much scary in our minds than they actually are in reality. So I'm curious for you guys, is this something that you've done regularly to schedule that time to have those those talks, that communication?
Yeah, lately, once kids came into the mix, the days are just out of control for the most part.
Yes.
It's just one thing after another. And if we didn't schedule those times in, it would be, a passing comment that would probably be taken in the wrong context and lead to an argument. And, it's taken us a bit to get to this point, but it was, you never want to say like the arguments are worth getting to a point where, you have like open lines of communication, but they're almost like necessary. So you can kind of figure out like, okay, we do need to schedule this time in, because otherwise, I'm going to say something in passing, it's going to not land right, or vice versa. And, like you said, our imaginations are going to run wild. And if we don't ever sit down to have a thoughtful conversation about it, who knows what what the truth really is. So,
When you talk about the benefits of those arguments, sorry to cut you off there, though, I think
yeah,
about it all the time because I've written something about a volcano, right? And a volcano that, like, all of those, not having that conversation is the pressure building up in that volcano, and then eventually it's going to erupt. But the thing about that is sometimes after a volcano erupts, the most diverse ecosystems emerge from there, right? You get new growth and life forms exist that kind of never were there before. And I feel like sometimes after having those releases, look, nobody's perfect, right? There are certain things you're not going to want to say, certain things you're going to say at the wrong time, but that need to be said. And having that kind of explosion, that eruption, leads to that new growth and to look at things in ways they haven't before. So yeah, I totally agree when it comes to the necessary and sometimes just seeing the silver lining. Also, if you're that passionate and that angry, God, it shows you care about something, right? And in a time when so many people are just apathetic about things or they just give up, like, that shows that you still care. You're still fighting for something. So I think looking at the positive side of those things can be extremely beneficial. I want to get into kids now because obviously this is the dad habit, and I know that your habits change drastically once you have those kids. So how has your investment in health and fitness as a profession and a career, do you think, impacted you as a dad, and do your kids kind of see what goes on there on a regular basis?
yeah, I've was talking to a close friend about this not too long ago, and just said if Karen and I had our first child before I got passionate about health and fitness, my mindset was totally different, and their childhood would be totally different. And not to say one way is right or wrong, but I know my mindset now, and I feel like I'm a more effective parent than I would have been, 5 or 6 years earlier. And that's just in a self confidence sort of way, more knowledge about how to sort of be a role model, so to speak. In the past, before I got in, got my health and fitness as a priority, I was I had no direction. I didn't know what I wanted to do, who I wanted to be, and just kind of like blaming everything around me. Now it's a lot different in the sense that I feel like I'm in total control of most outcomes. And I feel like that has impacted my parenting style in a positive way. So the timing and my age and all of that, I think, is in direct correlation to how I parent and how I would have parented, should kids have come along prior to my own personal, mental and physical transformation. Um, to answer the second part of that, we have a home gym here, and Gia is always wanting to go out there and do exercise. We get out there, and she just takes the markers on the whiteboard and just scribbles around. But to her, that's exercise, and I think getting her, she's going to be 4 in October. I think getting her comfortable around exercise equipment, dumbbells, barbells, medicine balls, all of these
Don't
things,
forget
I
the
think.
kettlebells, where it all
Yeah,
started.
yeah. The ones we have now are, we don't have the 7-pound pink ones for her to play with. So the ones we have are a bit too heavy for her right now. But yeah, I think having her in that environment, even though it's just at our home, is going to raise her confidence when she does get old enough to, be able to do actual workouts. If that helps her, if she plays sports one day, or just from the mental aspects of, the benefits that we get from lifting weights. If she's getting comfortable being around that sort of equipment, being in that environment now, I think that's only going to be beneficial as she starts to get older here.
That's awesome, man. And especially now when we talk about raising young women. I don't have a daughter, and that is the one thing I look at as a father. My heart grew, I wasn't the Grinch beforehand, but my heart grew 3 sizes, right, when my sons were born. But I do feel like there's probably a part of you and a part of all the dads of daughters, the girl dads out there who have had another part of their brains and maybe their hearts unlocked, that we who don't have daughters haven't had that access to. So seeing that and building that strength in our young women out there, I think is so important. I recognize that. I was, after being raised by a single mom, it definitely has changed my outlook a bit, or I think I have a different outlook, I should say, on when it comes to relationships with women and understanding where they should be. And I think that communication and collaboration is going to be just more important as we move forward in this world. So kudos to you on that. All right. We end each of these podcasts here because we are the Dad Habit. I ask every guest, what is one habit for you that you have instilled in your life that you think has paid the biggest dividends?
Consistent bedtime. I
For you or the kids or both?
Well, for me, their bedtimes seem to be a bit scattered. We failed miserably at sleep training with Gia, so she, most evenings trying to get her to sleep is like pulling teeth. So a consistent bedtime for myself, and of course it's fluctuated greatly over the years. When we didn't have kids and we were going to the gym 5 days, 6 days a week, I was in bed by 8 o'clock. 8 to 4 was my sleep time. Now it's probably closer to 10 o'clock, but maintaining that through the weekends has been fantastic. A fantastic habit that I've built over the last 5-6 years. It just, when the day is going to end, so you have a deadline, and you're going to wake up at a reasonable hour so that you can get stuff done before the day gets started. So that's allowed me to get work done during the day, and then also know I'm going to wake up early and get some exercise in to kind of kick my day off on the right foot. So the bedtime allows both of those things to happen. And I find that, a lot of times from a coaching standpoint, a lot of people struggle to kind of see the correlation between the two. So if you can find that big rock, so to speak, and for me, it's been the bedtime that kind of opens up a few other quality habits, like habit stacking, basically.
Yep.
You just kind of allow it to compound over time. So I would say that the bedtime for me has been the big one.
I got to ask because I agree with you, and I will get in times where I'll hit my streaks, right, of getting to bed at a certain time. But it is the most difficult habit that I want to build in my life, right? That consistency when it comes to that. And I get the benefits of it. So how do you prioritize that? How did you get started on that habit? Because I would love to join you.
I think the thing that probably got me into the habit was just wanting to wake up early and get things out of the way before the day got started. So before kids were in the picture, I knew I needed to be at the gym by 5:15 every morning. So just working back from there, that means I needed to be up by 4 o'clock so I can wake up a little bit, prepare stuff, my clothes after the workout, whatever, just to kind of streamline my morning. So I knew I needed X number of minutes before leaving the house to get these few things in order. And that, dictates your bedtime the night before. And then, kind of relying on that community to keep me going back to the gym. I think that really helped. And, as the training, depending on what I'm doing, has changed, kids in the mix, you still have that window of sleep. You just got to be a little bit flexible and allowing it to shift every so often. But, I think setting that goal of doing something and kind of backing your way out of it to figure out what time everything else needs to happen to make you successful, is what really worked and allowed it to stick for me.
So it wasn't even really about the sleep. It was about the idea that you had to be at the gym at 5:15, and then working back from there got you to say, okay, I have to go to bed at this time if I'm going to wake up at this time.
Yep, exactly.
I love it. I love it, man. Jim Gazzale, Sense Fitness. That's sensefitness.com, right? Anywhere else you want people to check you out?
Yeah, you can find me on Facebook is where I share all of my best content, I would say. Just search Jim Gazzale. I should be the only one that shows up. And then on Instagram, Sense Fitness USA, SENS Fitness USA. And yeah, we'll share plenty of good content there as well.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you taking the time. And again, follow him on all those platforms there. You'll get to meet his better half, Karen, as well. I was going to say other half, but let's be honest, the better half out there. And you'll see, I love the shows you guys are doing, navigating the challenges, shall we say, of parenting while doing this. They've got a really fun series, I guess, is on Instagram and Facebook as well. So check them out there. Jim, I really appreciate the time today, man.
Thanks, Joe. I appreciate it. Always good to catch up with you.
Talk to you soon. And everybody else out there listening, thank you so much for taking the time. We really appreciate it. If you're following us on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, if you're watching us on Facebook or YouTube, wherever it may be, please like, follow, subscribe, share, leave a review, all that good stuff. It really does mean a lot for us and our content out there, and will help other people hopefully learn and benefit from the things that we're talking about here. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Dad Hab Live. We will talk to you next time.